Being blessed with a sonorous radio voice, I assumed I could just get on stage, wing it, and I'd do fine. Fortunately, I met Laurie-Ann and got into her in-demand program before I discovered the hard way that I was wrong. Now I have a signature speech. I have a structure to build signature speeches, and my stunning good looks and sonorous voice will serve me very well as I give a coherent, well-structured, impactful speech instead of what I was going to wing left to my own devices. So thank you so much, Laurie-Ann, for teaching me what I did not know and keeping me out of trouble and making it so I can actually have the impact that I'm hoping to have by getting on stages.
Conferences can feel overwhelming, right? You walk into a sea of people, endless sessions, and a packed agenda, not to mention the exhibit hall. And it's easy just to float from room to room or go into the exhibit hall and just kind of glance from afar to all the different vendors. But here's the thing. Going to a conference without a plan is kind of like going to the grocery store when you're hungry. You know what I mean, don't you? You end up leaving with a cart full of stuff that you really like and that is so appealing. But when it comes to putting it together, it's like not much makes a meal. That's why whenever I attend a conference, I show up with a strategy. And in today's episode, I am going to share that exact strategy that I use to turn conferences into opportunities for growth, connection, and visibility. Because trust me, the real magic of these events happens outside of the sessions. It happens when you connect with other people. So if you're planning to attend any size conference this year or any other event, I want you to grab your notebook because let's turn that next conference that you're attending into a game changer for your business. And if we've never met before, I'm Laurie-Ann Murabito. I am the host of this podcast, Be in Demand. And this is the podcast for coaches, consultants, and service providers. Because on this podcast, we talk all about how to leverage speaking opportunities as your best form of marketing, because speaking positions you as the expert, attracts the ideal clients that you're looking for, and helps you monetize your message. Let's jump into how I have a strategy for when I go to conferences. I want to talk specifically about this conference that I went to last month, PodFest. And if you'll recall, in December, I had the CEO of PodFest on the podcast. And we talked about his experience, his career, but also very much about the PodFest experience. And I had applied to speak. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't get accepted. When I did see the agenda, I did look through the agenda, and there were a lot of things I'm just not an expert on. A lot of AI talks. There were a lot of sessions on writing a book and how to use that with your podcast, or how to turn your podcast into a book, but essentially how to leverage a book to position yourself as an expert or an authority in your industry. There weren't any talks specifically on how to use the stage to grow your podcast or how to use your podcast to get on more stages, which is what I had offered to speak for them. But no problem, because speaking is a long game. So one of the things that I did was I did volunteer, and I was put on the registration desk. And it was a great way for me to get to meet a bunch of people and help some other newbies out and share with them, here was my experience. This is why I'm back here this year. And also volunteering puts you in front of other people who have been to PodFest more years than I have. This was my second year. So I went with the intention of, one, getting in front of the CEO again. And since I had him on my podcast, I had met him in person before, but to have a conversation with him again. Lucky for me, he does live in the New England area, and he's also part of the New England podcasters group. But I also met the owner of PodFest. I asked somebody who I had been networking with, and I had just met him at the conference, if he would introduce me. He happened to be another fellow speaker. When I did meet the owner of PodFest, I shared with him, I said, I'm the person who such and such introduced us by text. Thank you very much for suggesting that Nick come on my podcast. I got a lot of great feedback on that. So I just kind of like reminded him of who I was, because he only knew me as a text message and my name, but that was about it. So I'm putting a face to a name. I did go to several sessions that I was very interested in, but I also did a lot of networking. I think I already know what I want to do with my podcast this year. And so that was set even before I went to PodFest. Now, while I was sitting in some of the sessions, I did come up with some great things that need to get done on the website and also on my podcast. So that's just fine tuning how I'm leveraging my podcast to get my message out there, to attract more of the ideal people into my world and to help them start raising their hand to speaking. I love telling people there are 20,000 speaking events that are happening today globally, 20,000. I said, and this right here that you're experiencing, where you're going from room to room to room, to speaker to speaker to speaker, this is one event. So that 20,000 can be many, many speaking opportunities. So I got to meet a lot of people, see some very familiar faces. And here's the other thing. Something that I noticed last year was it was very casual. And I will admit that's the tone that I heard. So last year I went very casual. So this year I looked more professional. I want to be taken seriously as a speaker. So I wasn't in flip-flops or shorts, even though it was Florida. I was in, heels, boots specifically, jeans, and a blazer. And that was how I dressed for the 3 days for the conference. Now, here's something fun that you should always do. You should always go up and meet the keynote speakers. Go introduce yourself if you have the opportunity. And also if you have a question that you want to ask them or share a story or a moment with them. So John Lee Dumas was the opening keynoter. And him and his wife, Kate, shared their journey from the beginning of hey, let's start a podcast, and how he decided to start a daily podcast. And even though he was told by somebody who had more experience in podcasting to only do it once a week, he still followed his gut, his intuition, and did the daily podcast. So here he is, over 4,000 episodes later, and he is still the daily podcast. If you are not familiar with John Lee Dumas, he is EO on Fire. Entrepreneurs on Fire is the name of his podcast. So definitely check it out. After his keynote, I went up to him and I waited very patiently while other people asked him questions. And I shared with him, I said, "Hi, I'm Laurie-Ann, and I have a podcast all about public speaking." The question I would have asked when they were accepting questions from the audience is, you mentioned how you weren't good at speaking, that it was something that you did the reps on, but here you are speaking. How has speaking impacted your brand, your business, or your podcast? And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "I could come on your podcast and answer that question." And I said, "Okay, I will invite you on my podcast. But first, would you answer the question anyways?" And he did. So we had this great brief conversation. And I even shared with him that I see a lot of people waiting for paid speaking opportunities, and they're not going to say yes until. And he said, the first time I got on stage, I was a fill-in. Now, this is not the first time I've heard this. And this is something that you've probably heard me say on this podcast. Be of service. Tell people that you're available to be a speaker, even to fill in for a local conference, because there are lots of reasons why speakers don't show up for conferences, whether it's weather, illnesses, emergencies. You just never know. And you will be the person who saves the day for that meeting planner, for whoever is organizing that conference. And that's what happened to John Lee Dumas. Somebody reached out to him and said, "Hey, a speaker dropped out. Would you fill in?" And he just said, "Okay, yes." So I am definitely going to be having him on the podcast. At the time of this recording, it's been a week and a half since PodFest ended. And I wanted to give him that time that he got home, because lots of people were probably emailing him. So this coming week is when I will reach out to him. And I already know that he has a process. He has a process for being on other people's podcasts. And if I want to bring him on my podcast, I have to follow his process. So I'm very open to that and sharing more about that. So you can expect, I should say, hopefully we can expect that he will be a future guest on an episode here on Be in Demand. So that was something else that I want to encourage you. That's part of my strategy, is that I will go up and meet the speakers. I am actually in a woman's program who I met at another conference. And again, she was a speaker, and I waited patiently to speak with her because I was already on her email list. I already love and I'm fascinated with what she does. This is Tracy Goodwin that I'm talking about, and she's all about voice psychology. To be able to just go up to her, I remember you from this other conference. It was great to see you again. I loved the exercise. And then I actually shared with her, I said, I would like to work with you, but I don't know which program of yours is the best option for me. Could I reach out to you to book a call? She's putting a face to a name so that when we do get on a call, it's going to be like, hey, I remember you from. That's another strategy, is go up and meet the speakers. And also when you hang around the speaker, even if you just hang around there after you get your question answered or share whatever it is that you wanted to share, that's a great way, especially if you're an introvert. This is a great way to meet other people that are at the conference, because whoever is, you're obviously interested in the speaker, and other like-minded people are also going to be coming up to meet the speaker. And it's a great way to meet like-minded people. And another strategy for conferences is also going into the exhibit hall. Going in there to meet them, to learn about their product, because you just never know who you are going to end up talking to. I had some great conversations with several of the vendors, and I've hired a couple of those vendors as well. But that wouldn't have happened unless I had those conversations. And you just never know where that relationship is going to lead. Another thing that I love to do, especially for some of the speakers that I know or I kind of know, I'll take pictures of them speaking and send them those pictures. As a matter of fact, the woman who was the MC, she's a good friend of mine. She was there last year. I took pictures of her at the closing. And this year I took pictures of her at the opening session, the opening ceremony, and also the closing ceremony, and sent her a bunch of pictures. Another friend of mine who was speaking, I sent him, oh my God, probably close to 30 pictures of him speaking on stage. As a speaker, I see pictures differently. So I take and send the pictures that I would want somebody to be taking and sending to me. If you're wondering what that is, not just close-ups, but also big room pictures, even if you can't see the speaker that well. Those pictures is social proof. These are the sort of pictures that meeting planners want to see. And the people that I sent these pictures to, they're going to use them in their social media, on their website, to prove, hey, they've been on stage. So that's another thing that I love to do for people also. I'll even ask them, I'll let them know, hey, I'm going to take pictures. What kind of pictures do you need? And one woman told me, she said, B-roll. She goes, I don't care what I'm saying. She goes, because I will put something else over it. She said, if you can just take a bunch of B-roll. And I did. I took a bunch of videos for her. Then making my to-do list. All the people that I'm going to reach back out to, reconnect with, because I got invited on a lot of different podcasts. There are a lot of different ideas that I learned in the session. And so I've got a laundry list of to get dones and things, ideas that I want to implement this year. But the most important thing that I want you to walk away with is conferences is more than just learning inside the sessions. It's about meeting other people and who do they know, because you literally never know when you meet somebody what that is going to do for you, especially when you start sharing about here's what I do, here's how I help people. You've probably heard me talk about that the doors to in-demand signature speech are open. Well, that is because of several conversations that I actually had at PodFest. I knew that this program was going to be launching in February. However, I hadn't picked an actual date when I was at PodFest, but because I had a couple of conversations, I was like, all right, look at a calendar, pick a date, because these people are interested. And then I came up with the idea that, hey, anybody who pre-buys, you get instant access. You do not have to wait till February 17th for us to start as a group. You get to start right away. And then we all come together and we will start as a group. But you almost get a head start on this. So that's something new that I've not done before when I have launched and run in-demand signature speech. And also, it's been 2 years since I have run in-demand signature speech, only because I've been so busy with private clients. So I'm bringing it back, and I've had a lot of people who have been really asking me. They'll send me emails like, when are you doing this again? When are you doing this again? I want to be in on this. Like last year, I had several people on the different trips that I went on when I was walking the Camino, and also when I was down in Peru, asking me about, when are you going to run in-demand signature speech again? Because I really want to work with you. And if this is the year that you have said yes to speaking, to crafting your stories, to sharing your solutions and having a bigger impact with people, I want to encourage you to look at in-demand signature speech. The doors are literally open. You get instant access to the program, and we are all going to start together through the 8-week program. So if you want to get a jump start on crafting your speech, go to speakandstandout.com/SS. Take a look at the sales page. That has all the information, what all the different weeks are about, all the different bonuses, and there's lots of testimonials for you to look at and see what results other people have had. A couple of my students have said, every time I use my in-demand signature speech, people walk up to me and hand me their business cards and say, my company needs to work with you. I have another group that I could bring you in to speak at. I'm on a committee for a conference and would like to talk to you about you speaking for us next spring. I've also had clients who they stepped off the stage to 26 paid speaking opportunities. And that all came from a free talk that she gave at a networking group. Can you imagine giving your signature speech, a speech that you are so proud of because you know that it serves your audience, but it also positions you as the expert and lets people know the different ways that they can work with you. And in this particular case, you got 26 speaking opportunities. And of course, when that happened, it led to another conversation between the two of us, like, now what do I do? And I was able to share with her, here's what I want you to do next. So if this is something that you would like to do, go to speakandstandout.com/SS. And if you have a question whether or not in-demand signature speech is the right thing for you to do, on that page, there is a link so you can book a quick call. And remember, speaking is the fastest way to grow your business. So until next week, go and be in demand. Hey there, are you ready to take the stage and your business to the next level? Because the doors to my in-demand signature speech program are officially open. Join now and you will get instant access to the program so you can start crafting your 3 C's presentation, a talk that is captivating, compelling, and most importantly, converting. Imagine an audience that's raving about you, remembering you, and referring you long after you step off the stage. That is the power of a signature speech. And this program will help you create one that you are proud to deliver. If you want a sneak peek at what's inside the program, check out the show notes for a past episode where I pulled back the curtain and gave you a behind-the-scenes look. Your audience is waiting. Let's make your story the one that they will never forget. I'll see you inside.